Our fellowship with God. If we wish to know how we stand with God, let us examine ourselves and see how we feel toward our neighbor. This companionship that we are seeking with God is found in the friendliness we show our neighbor. It is evident that our actions, our words, and our thoughts indicate too plainly our failure to seek fellowship with the Father. Let us examine ourselves that we may know what is buried in our hearts and minds that may be blinding us or binding us. And if we have anything against another, let us pray for forgiveness, knowing that His mercy is sufficient for all. Seek God where He may be found, even in the heart of a neighbor. How well do we know God? Just as well as we seek to know and understand our fellow human beings, and just as well as we seek to magnify the divine consciousness in them. Do we seek far for the divine in this direction? Do we not judge our neighbors from appearances rather than by righteous judgment? Do we not often overlook the motive which may have prompted their misconduct? Do we realize that deep down in the heart of our neighbors, there lies buried a celestial fire that burns ever before the altar of our God? Then let us seek them out and, in spite of the rebuffs that we may receive, love them, not for what they appear to be, but for what they really are. Not because they are human and need our sympathy, but because within them there is the divine that merits our adoration. What is more beautiful than fellowship? The Master sought it, that he might do the works of God. He did not withdraw from people, but mingled with them, sharing their sorrows, living their lives, and relieving their sufferings. We cannot hope to emulate his example, however, unless we abide in the Spirit that gives the strength. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me ye can do nothing. The Master taught that love and service go hand in hand. What greater love could he have shown than to lay down his life in service for his fellow human beings? Yet that is just how far the Master went to demonstrate his power over sin, death, and the grave, that those who seek life might know the way. May the Spirit help us to be willing to serve and to see in our neighbor his or her higher self at all times, in all places, and under all circumstances. If we would have fellowship, we must rely on his promises and keep his commandments, which are not grievous. The greatest commandment, that ye love one another, he called a new commandment, and it is still new to many of his followers. We affirm that we want to know God, but do we really mean it? If we are really sincere, will we not be eager to sacrifice our desires, our opinions, and our whims, that the wonders found in the knowledge and understanding of the works of the Creator, our God and Father, may be revealed to us? May we not be willing to endure, that we may be counted worthy to share in the glory to be revealed to those who have given themselves wholly to his service? How easy the way when self is lost in him. How easy to follow when we have been told to use what we have and more will be given. Let us remember the Master's words to Simon. Feed my sheep. None of us can approach the Father with any degree of assurance when we feel and know in our hearts that we are out of harmony with ourselves or others. We are out of harmony with ourselves when we lack faith in ourselves, or when we minimize the power of the God within and forget that all power in heaven and earth is committed to our keeping, if we will attune ourselves to the infinite source of that power. We are out of harmony with others when we think of them as less divine than ourselves, or as possessing less divine power, love, and mercy. Therefore, it is necessary to begin with ourselves to purge our hearts and minds, and to become more conscious of the divine spirit within others. This is necessary if we hope to have the fellowship with the Father that will cause us to realize our oneness with him. Prayer and meditation are the essential factors that will keep alive within us this perfect harmony. Are we seeking this fellowship? Would we have God draw nigh unto us? If so, then let us draw nigh unto God, approaching often the throne of grace, with mercy in our hearts. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, that is, the unregenerated heart, the heart that knows not the cleansing of the Spirit or the awakening of the presence of God. Let us search our hearts. If our heart condemn us, God is greater than our heart and knoweth all things. He knows our joys and sorrows. He knows how we have tried and, therefore, in spite of our failures, shows love and mercy. If our hearts condemn us not, then we have faith in God, faith that He will keep His promises. Let us be ever ready to forgive. This is the way that God deals with us. He has pardoned our sins and blotted out our transgressions. How much more should we be willing to forgive others? If the thoughts, deeds, or acts of others have caused us pain, let them not be magnified in our own mind or charged to their account. Let us who have pledged our loyalty bear the cross, since we have the promise of the crown. Let us help our fellow human beings by our patience and forbearance, and show them that love is a living thing. What great love hath the Father bestowed upon us that we might show forth His glory among all people. Let us strive to be kind, training ourselves to be considerate of those who do not seem to appreciate it. Yes, be kind when it is the hardest. It is worth the trial, not for the reward we may expect from others, but because we cannot allow anything to mar the fellowship we would have with the Father. One unkind word may not leave a lifelong pang in the heart of another, but it will place us so out of harmony with all that we count worthwhile that its effects will follow us, perhaps through many years. Great kindness may be shown through little deeds. One who gives a word of comfort to the disheartened will have one's reward. Though this is a small service, it may help as nothing else would help. Let us not count any good act lost. No seed falls to the ground without the Father's knowledge. It was only a cup of water to the tired master at the well that set the occasion which brought many out of the city, seeking to know more about the water of life. May we lose no opportunity to bind up the brokenhearted, to pour oil on the troubled waters, or to heed the command, comfort ye, my people, saith your God. Let us remember that we shall give account for every idle thought. Therefore, let us think on those things that make for love for others. As we develop step by step, here a little, there a little, we learn cooperation, we get better acquainted with ourselves, trust more fully in our ideal, have our faith strengthened, gain virtue and understanding, and more become aware of our fellowship with the Father and our duty to others. In Mercury, with both an adverse influence in Mars and a benevolent influence in Uranian sojourn, we find that anger, war, turmoils have played an important experience in even the present sojourn, yet the spiritual influences, in being able to turn within and to rely upon the higher ideals, have saved the entity, as it were, in its search, in its seeking. There have been turmoils and strife from the anger of others, from the disappointments of self, from conditions and experiences that have made for fear at times to creep in, and the wonderments as of how a loving Father allows one, that tries and tries, to be in a position to suffer so in body, in mind, as in the experience of the entity and those about it at times. Yet, with the application of that which has been held as the spiritual guidance in the sojourn in the earth, there will come that saving grace, that expression that is given by Him who is the author and the finisher of faith, who is the life, who is the way, who is the vine. And ye as the branches may in Him find that He will abide with them that keep His commandments, and His grace is sufficient unto thee, and will keep and sustain thee even in those conditions that overwhelm thee at times, and bring thee to a greater knowledge and understanding in the light of that service He would have thee render in His vineyard. For the day dawns when the love of the Father is to be manifested more and more among men. Know that thou hast a part in same, and it will be given thee that thou shouldst do. In the selfsame hour, as ye have need of, will it be shown thee. What spiritual advice would be of benefit to this body? That as is held, keep that inviolate, knowing that there must be the ideal set before self, that may only be accomplished in the fulfillment of the trusts, as are given from time to time. For the Spirit suffers none to be tempted beyond that they are able to bear. Knowing, then, that such is, as to whether one is gratifying selfish interest, or is keeping spiritual faith, walk in that light as is said in Him who gave, follow in that way, for my yoke is easy, and my burden is light, for in me is life, and the water of life, for I am the vine, and ye are the branches. He that dwelleth in me dwelleth in the Father also. For as ye find in that love one for another, it is taking hold, it is a material manifestation of that love he hath shown. Then as ye attempt to make this spiritual in thy lives, ye may make for a life of beauty, of joy, of worthwhileness, such that others seeing and knowing, may take thought and do likewise. Let the love of the Father, as one for another, constrain thee day by day. The entity's application in self also in Venus, as related to those things that become material, has brought and does bring about strange and unusual associations. If this makes for the application of self and its imports of love as of a divine unit and not of the secular forces, it will bring also, during the next 2.5 years, the associations wherein there may be the greater activities of the entity. And the return to the harmony that has existed in the experience of the entity and has become in part at least confusion owing to its attempts to adapt the knowledge at the moment. But peace and harmony are within and are states of consciousness that bring to the abilities of self those great influences for the use of the metaphysical, as from the vibratory forces of color, of sound, of speech, of place, of environmental forces for the entity's harmony if kept in faith. For when an individual in its applications in self is insecure in that of certainty owing to material environs, these bring confusion. But the assurance that he meeteth thee in the temple of thine own body, in the quietness of thine own vibrations, if there is brought the oneness of self with the consciousness of the divine within, creates harmony and peace, and a certainty that is in the experience of the soul. And though there may be turmoils in the body conscious, though there may be in the physical environs disappointments, the assurance of the oneness of that divine within, with the purpose of self and its relationships to thy fellow man brings harmony. Harmony there must be in the experience of the entity if it will accomplish, if it will find rest in itself, if it will bring the best to its fellow man. For as ye meet to thy fellow man, so ye meet to the divine within thine inner self. So may ye find that as will bring into the experience of self a consciousness of the indwelling of the God within. Let the body learn that he that would have harmony must be harmonious first within his own self, and such radiation from self will bring to the home, to business, to friends, such a peace that brings harmonious contentment, though not necessarily satisfied. But be content with that in hand, and so act, so live, and so manifest harmony through self's action, as to bring that to pass. For what is sown one also reaps. For what is sown one also reaps. When the act, either by physical deed, implication or word, is such as to put even the question mark as to what is the intent and purpose, dissatisfaction is created. And remember, thoughts are deeds and may become crimes or miracles. Apply that in the relations with the home, and the harmony as is sought will be the outcome. Not with an eye service of, that I may have my own way, or that I may bring others to my own way of acting, or own way of thinking. But let thine thought, thine act, be so in harmony with that of the inner life, as to radiate harmony. For when one looks about in all nature of every character, the first law is harmony, and is of divine origin, even as life, and when same is not in accord with that of the creative energy, or God, discord is the result. In the desire to create harmony, physically and mentally, and in relationships with those in the home, in the work, and in other environments, this, of course, the entity must understand and also comprehend. Harmony must first be within self. So long as the activities of others are allowed to upset the body, this produces first inharmony within self. This does not necessarily mean to become indifferent, but in the physical and in the mental and in the spiritual, there is required first the surety within self. Know not only what ye believe but who is the author of same. Not because, merely, this or that may have been said by this or that person, but, according to the true spiritual law, because my spirit beareth witness with thy spirit, where two shall agree as concerning anything, they shall ask my Father in heaven, and he will do it, that I may be glorified. This was not given merely as something to say, nor to make individuals feel puffed up or less mindful of the rest, that is, ye shall love one another. These are manners, then, that harmony may be brought. However, the very nature and innate activities create those forces in which there are the inclinations for the entity, in the reverse from love, beauty, nature, to hold little resentments, to become rather of the nature wherein the entity may say in self, yes, I can forgive, but I cannot forget. These must be overcome more and more. For as ye would that men should do to you, do ye even so to them is the law. Not merely of sacrifice, not merely of recompense but of grace and mercy, which are so sought for by the entity in the assurances of that, as ye would be forgiven, so must ye forgive. For as ye do it unto the least of thy brethren, ye do it unto thy Maker is the spiritual law. For, if ye would be forgiven, even as he, then ye must forgive those who have trespassed or may trespass against thee. Though ye may be accused according to man's understanding, or his lack of it, thine own conscience, thine own spirit beareth witness with his spirit, as to whether ye are complying with his purpose, his law, day by day,